Hey, hello, I'm Kråkan, also known as Kråkan, and welcome to Closet Movie Rambles, where I talk about old movies that I found in my closet while cleaning. This week's movie is Spirited Away, and it's an anime film made by Studio Ghibli in 2001. It's about 2 hours and 4 minutes long. And the movie starts with the main protagonist, Shiro, a young girl in the backseat of her parents' car. They're about to move to another city. And she doesn't want to move, she doesn't want to leave her old place. And she has this bouquet in her arm, and she has this welcome and greeting card, which will become important later on in the movie. But anyway, they take a small shortcut, and they end up at a tunnel. And Shiro doesn't want to go inside the tunnel, but her dad says, it'll be a little shortcut or something. And then they move into the tunnel, and it's dark and everything, and they wind up in an old waiting hall, like one of those old train stations waiting halls. And they move out of that place, and they go into a big field. So Shiro's dad remarks that it's kind of like one of those abandoned theme parks. They were all over Japan at this time, like projects that started and didn't go anywhere, so they just scrapped it all together, and now they're just abandoned. So anyway, they smell food, so they move on, and they get into this kind of abandoned cityscape, and the food is so good, so the parents just start eating, and the dad says, well, we will pay later, basically. But Shiro doesn't like this, and she feels like something is off, something is bad, and she starts to explore, and she finds this bridge to like an hotel, or a bathhouse it is. And she meets up with this young man named Haku, and he tells her basically to leave this place in a hurry, because if they don't leave now, they won't be able to later. And then she runs back to her parents, and they have turned into pigs, and they won't leave, and they just, continue to eat. And she gets freaked out, and she runs away, and the cityscape kind of closes down, and it's nighttime, and lights go up, and there are dark shapes everywhere, and she just wants to hide. She just wants to disappear, and she hides down at the docks. She tries to run back the way they came, but it's filled with water now, so it's basically a docks, as I said. And then a ship arrives with dark shapes, and once they step on land, they turn into these kind of, not kaiju, but later like Japanese spirit, kind of folklore kind of creatures. And these are the residents that stay at this bathhouse / hotel. And she hides, and she just wants to disappear, and she kind of fades off a bit, because this is a magical place. And what happens then is that Haku finds her. She's basically kneeling down, and he gives her something to eat, something magical, so that she will actually be sustained in this world. So she turns visible, and she just want to go home, but that's not possible at this moment. And she just want to see her parents, but that's not possible either. So he decides to take her back to the hotel and basically get her a job, because that's the way you make contracts and deal, which will come important later on. Excuse me, in the movie. So they have to cross this bridge to the hotel, and it's filled with these kind of weird creatures from Japanese folklore, and they don't like humans. So Haku, which is actually a spirit dragon, a water spirit dragon, not spoiling everything, so yeah, spoilers up ahead. He puts a spell on her and tells her that don't breathe, because then the spell will be broken. And they try to cross the bridge, and everything is going fine, and then this kind of frog jumps up, and he kind of frightens her, Shiro, and the spell is broken, and they rush into one of the side doors. And he basically tells her to go and see Kamaji down below, and he shows her the path somehow with some kind of magic, exactly where she needs to go. And go and see Kamaji and ask for a job, and be persistent, and he will be checking back on her later or something. So she just goes down to those kind of dangly, kind of weird, kind of broken up stairs, and one of the steps breaks, and she has to run all the way down, and it's kind of one of these funny scenes. She's like crawling all of a sudden, and then it's like boom, full speed down, and she go into this service door, and she finds this furnace room, because Kamaji works with the furnace, and he's heating the water for this luxury bathhouse. So he just heats the water and sends it up to the bathhouse, and that's what he does. And Shiro asks him for a job, but he doesn't really want to give her the job. So she's kind of persistent, and they have these small like Sooth creatures, like from the other movie that I mentioned or reviewed in the past, the Totoro movie. So these Sooth creatures carry coal into the furnace for it to boil and make the furnace warm. And one of the Sooth creatures dropped the coal on itself by mistake and gets crushed. And Shiro picks up the coal, and Kamaji says, like, finish the job. Now you've taken on this task, now you have to finish the job. So she throws in the coal into the furnace, and all the other Sooth creatures realize that, okay, she's doing the work for us. So they do the same thing. They drop the coal, and the Kamaji gets angry and yells at him and tells him I will turn you into normal Sooth if you keep this shit up, basically. But then there's break time, and the housekeeper Lynn arrives, and she of course asks Kamaji, who is this young lady? And Kamaji lies and says, like, well, this is my granddaughter, and she wants a job, so can you take her to Yubaba to get a contract? And Yubaba is the owner of the hotel, this terrifying witch, and Lynn of course is afraid of her, or kind of, she doesn't want to go there. So Kamaji offers her a dried up lizard, which is supposedly a delicacy or something, and she goes along with it. So Shiro says goodbye to Kamaji, and they leave in the elevator, and she leaves her shoes because servants are not allowed to wear shoes. And they take the elevator upstairs, and Lynn distracts the hotel manager so that Shiro can go up and see Yubaba. And there's this fat kind of creature that rides the elevator with her. Then of course Shiro gets off at the top floor to see Yubaba, and she enters a room, and there's these kind of 3 kind of decapitated skulls that are jumping around, and just kind of weird situation. And she goes to see Yubaba, and Shiro is supposed to stand her ground because that's what Haku told her. So she stands her ground, and she says that she wants a job, and Yubaba says no. And what happens is there's a big ruckus in the other room, and there's a lot of everything on the desk, and everything falls apart, and Yubaba goes to check it out, and it's Yubaba's baby. But it's not a little baby, it's a huge baby, like bigger than Yubaba herself. And it's kind of a funny scene, like she goes to comfort the baby, but it's a big chaotic moment and everything goes wrong. And Shiro kind of stands the ground and says, like, I want a job. Okay, I give you a job, just if you shut up. And she signs a paper, and then Yubaba basically takes her name. Because this, I think it's a term in like European magical like culture too, that magic are ties to name. So if you know a person's true name, you have power over them. So she basically takes her name, Shiro, and removes the letter of the kanji, so it's spelled Sen. So she basically keeps her name and gives her a new one, so she has power over her. And then what happens is that she is now a servant of the hotel. So Haku arrives and escorts her down to the place where she's supposed to be, and she's distraught about this. And Lynn, the housekeeper, gets to be in charge over the Sen, current, or before this known as Shiro, because Lynn is also one of the only humans at the hotel, if I remember correctly. So she gets new clothes, and she gets told what her responsibilities are, and later she meets up with Haku. He basically tells her like to meet her on the bridge. So and they later go to check on their parents. So they go down to this farmhouse where they have all the pigs, and yeah, that's basically it. So there was one thing I forgot to tell. Like on the way to the pig farm, they meet up with this Oshiro. Sen sees this spirit called the Faceless, and he's basically a mask with a floating kind of half-transparent cloak. She just sees him for a brief moment, and then she meets up with Haku. And she gets to see her parents, and she gets her old clothes back and a gift card with her name Shiro on it. And it's important to have these things if you want to leave in the future. but the contract needs to be fulfilled, and that's the reason why Haku is still here and working with this terrible witch. He made a contract with her, and now she has her name basically. So anyway, she goes back to the hotel, and she falls, and the spirit creature Faceless follows her across the bridge basically, and she falls asleep in Kamaji's workshop in the basement. And Kamaji puts a blanket on her. And what happens then is that it's Shiro's first work day, and she punch in and they start to work in cleaning and stuff. So they get in charge of cleaning the big bathtub, which is usually the frog's work, but because they want to test her, just be assholes, I guess, because they don't really like humans. So they start to do the cleaning, and Lin asks Sen or Shiro to get one of the bath tokens so they can start cleaning the tanks. They need hygiene water, and she goes up to the bath master, and he is of course an asshole, and he ignores us flat out, right? And then Faceless appears behind the bath master and take one of the tokens, just gives her to Shiro, and then he disappears. And she goes back to the big tub and they start to clean it out, and Lin has to do something, so she leaves Sen in charge and tell her to fill up the tub. And then the Faceless returns, and he has a whole bunch of tokens in his hands, and he just offers them like to her, and he doesn't say anything. And she says, well, I don't need them now, but I thanks but no thanks. And then he disappears, and all these tokens fall out on the floor. And then Yubaba realized that something is wrong. Something is really wrong. Something is foul in the air. And the whole town kind of shuts down because there's this big mud monster that's approaching the bathhouse. Excuse me. And it forces its way into the hotel and into the tub or into the how do you say, like the foyer and the basic entrance. And Yubaba puts Sen in charge of actually cleaning this mud monster, trash god as she calls it. And Lin of course sees this but the stench is unbearable, and the creature kind of gets in the tub, and she starts to clean it, and she uses the token that Faceless left to basically pour water on the whole thing. But the water is just like overflowing in this mud and shit all over the place. And then she goes into the tank. She falls into the tank because she loses one of the rope to the shower mechanisms, and she realizes something is stuck inside the trash monster. And Yubaba kind of realized that this might not be a trash monster or a trash god. It might be something else. So they use a rope and they pull up like a bicycle, and all of a sudden it's like, when you have like a drainage and it's like a little hole, everything that gets clogged kind of rushes out. And then they clean up the thing, and they realize that it's actually a forest dragon. Not a forest dragon, but like a river dragon. And it rewards Sen with it's like a bitter cake, and it becomes better. It becomes important later on in the story. And then the spirit leaves, and as a thanks to this service, it leaves like gold, because there is in fact river in small streams of water. So all of the guests kind of get excited about this, and they try to go for the gold, but Yubaba says it's the hotel's gold, don't touch it, it's mine. She's greedy, but everybody gets happy about this. And later Shiro tries to eat some of the bitter cake that she got, but it's super strong. Man. So later that night, one of the frog creatures goes into the hot tub tank, the big hot tub, to look if there is some more gold in there. And the creature of Faceless is there, and the frog kind of calls him out like, "You're not supposed to be here. You're not a guest." And Faceless offers him gold, and it draws the frog creature in closer, and Faceless just eats him whole. He's this terrible creature when he is in this hotel, basically. And then another worker arrives and says and he sees Faceless, and he says Well, and then Faceless uses the voice of the frog because he doesn't have his own voice, and he tells him like, prep some food and make me. I want a hot tub. I want a bath. Do it now, and you get paid in advance. And he has this thing where he can like make gold appear in his hand somehow, but it's not gold. He's just tricking them. So later that morning, Shiro wakes up and everybody's gone to serve this faceless creature. And she thinks about her mom and dad, and she's kind of just sad. And she looks out the window and she sees this dragon that is attacked by these kind of paper cranes. It's magic, so just go with it. And she cries out to the dragon, and she somehow knows that this dragon is Haku. She doesn't really know why, but this becomes important somehow later in the story as well. And she opens up the drawer window and lets him in, and he's kind of beaten up and he's bloody, and she gets blood on her hands just because she wants to save him. And the paper cranes get stopped anyway, and one of them actually sticks to her back, and Haku goes to Yubaba because that's what he was supposed to take something. This is also part of the later part of the story, but basically, so Sen or Shiro is basically worried about Haku at this point, so she wants to save him. She doesn't want him to go to Yubaba because that will kill him basically, because he's already kind of broken and destroyed. So she goes up and tries to go to Yubaba's office, which is on the top floor, and she bumps into Faceless. And Faceless offers her gold, but she says, I don't have any use for gold really, and she politely declines and leaves. And and then Faceless kind of more or less devours two of the other workers just as she leaves, and the other workers kind of freak out about this, and then she realized that she can't reach the top floor by going up like the elevator, so she has to go through the fire escape. So she runs along this kind of pipe that breaks under her feet, and she basically climbs up into the to one of the trapdoors, and this paper crane on her back actually helps her in one of the windows, but she doesn't notice it. And then Yubaba arrives at the top floor, and she has to hurry. So Sen gets into the baby room basically with the big babies, and Yubaba is in there checking on the baby, and she has to hide, and the baby is kind of under these pillows, and Yubaba leaves, and the baby grabs her hand, and what happens is that the baby doesn't want her to leave. He wants her to play with him, but she doesn't want that. She just wants to save Haku, and he kind of says like, outside there's like bacteria and stuff, and it's very dangerous to go outside. I don't want to go outside. I just want to play with you. And she kind of uses the bloody hand and shows it to him to like, well, look, there's blood, and he freaks out about this. And then Sen rushes into the other room to save Haku, but she gets attacked by a giant bird, and the baby kind of enters the room. And this is the paper crane on her back activates a magical projection of Yubaba's twin sister Zeniba, which is the person that Haku stole from in the first place. And the projection puts a magical spell on the baby, turning it into a small mouse, and the bird gets turned into a small fly. And then Haku destroys the paper crane and dispels the magic. And then the little mouse and the little fly gets on Shiro's shoulder, and Shiro basically tries to help Haku, but they fall down this hole and he is unconscious, but he regains his consciousness, and they fall into Kamaji's workshop, where they struggle a bit, and she force feeds him the bitter cake that she got from the god, the river dragon god thingy from before, and that puts him into sleep again. And he's kind of broken down now, and he spits out the sigil that he took from Zeniba in the first place. And there's like this spy worm that she disposes of by just trampling on it. And the thing that Sen wants to do now is to go to Seniba and apologize on Haku's behalf for all that has been happening. But she can't get there, so Kamaji helps her by giving her a 40-year-old train ticket. And Lynn also entered the room at this point, and she asked, like, you always had that ticket? And Kamaji also explains to Lynn, because I think she's a bit confused, like what is going on and everything, and he basically tells Lynn that they're in love, or Sen is in love with Haku, and that was an eye-opener for me too. They have like this bond, but nothing indicates love. So anyway, that's why he's helping her, because of love and what she's about to do. So, but before Sen has to leave, she has to confront Yubaba, which she does. She walks up to Yubaba and basically tells her what she needs to do. And then she confronts Faceless, because he has been terrorizing the hotel and eating guests. And she confronts Faceless, and he basically asks her what she wants. And she says, like, she wants to go to to Seniba, basically, to save Haku or something. And then the Faceless kind of says, like, he wants her. But she says no, she can't give him that. So the Faceless creature kind of chase her a bit, and she kind of force feed him some of the bitter cake that she has left, and he starts to puke out all the things that he has been eating, and he kind of chases her through the hotel, and he gets smaller and smaller, and he spits out all these creatures that he has been eating. And down at the water, Lynn is waiting for her in a boat, and Faceless, in this form, he's kind of harmless, because he's himself again, because the hotel kind of made him bad because of all the things that happened. And they kind of get off. The fly and the little mouse is on her back, which is kind of funny. I forgot to tell, like, Yubaba didn't even recognize her own baby son, and that kind of made the little critter, the little mouse, kind of sad, aka the baby. So he decides to follow Sen instead and help her, which I thought was a little bit heartwarming, because now he's out in the world and he's not afraid of the bacteria and disease, everything. He just wants to help her, and I thought that was really funny and cute. So they arrive at this train platform, and Faceless arrive as well, and they wait for the train. And then Haku waits, and he realizes what's happened, and he confronts Yubaba about this. And Yubaba realized that her son is gone, and Haku says that he will go to Seniba and reclaim the baby, basically. That's what he says. And then cutting to Sen and friends arriving at the station, and they go in the direction of Seniba's house. So they get guided by a jumping kind of lantern, which I thought was funny, and it guides them to the house where Seniba is. And they enter the house, and she's much friendlier than her other twin sister, basically. So Sen returns the sigil and apologizes, and she's okay with it, kind of, and they stay a bit, and they befriend each other, and she makes a hairband for Sen to have. It's basically for protection. And then Haku arrives outside in dragon form, and basically the thing is that the witch Seniba tells him, tells the little mouse and the little fly that they can basically return to normal now because the spell is broken if they want to, but they don't want to do that. They're happy in their form as of right now. And Faceless kind of stays there and helps Seniba out because he wants to do that. He wants to be helpful to someone. And then Haku and the Sen and the mouse and the fly, they fly back to Yubaba's place. And then Sen realized where she first met Haku, and that was she fell into a river, and the river kind of saved her, and she lost her shoe in the process. So she kind of realized that Haku is actually named Kohaku, which is the name of the river, and he's a river spirit and a river dragon, and that kind of breaks another part of his spells. So he still has a contract with Yubaba, But now he knows his own name, so now things will be a lot easier for him. Yubaba doesn't really have control over him, just besides the contract. And then they arrive at the hotel, or the bathhouse, the hotel, and they confront Yubaba. And Sen is kind of in her form right now. She's in the right spirit of it. So there's one more step left. So because of the contract and everything, said if she guesses which one of the pigs are her parents, she can basically leave. And of course she says like, no, those are not my parents, they're somewhere else. And the contract is broken because she was right about it. And Haku and the baby turns into the baby, and Yubaba is happy about that. And then she can basically leave. She puts on her old clothes and they rushes down back to the waiting hall. And Haku says, of course, I can't really leave, but once I'm free, I will visit you in the real world. And by some miracle, because of magic, her parents is waiting for there in the field, and they go into the waiting area, and they have no memory of what actually happened. So they go through the tunnel again, and they go back to the car, and it's of course dusty inside, and there is some overgrowth on the thing, like nature has taken its course, but they're kind of confused about this, like what happened. And that's the end of the movie. So can I recommend this movie? Absolutely. It's one of the movies that put Studio Ghibli on the map really for most people, because I've said this comparison before, like Studio Ghibli is like the American or European version of Disney, and the quality of this movie is really on par with those kind of budgets, I guess. It looks really good, and it's one of those movies that kind of brought me into the whole thing. I mean, I've seen like Princess Mononoke and like the other movies like Totoro and all that, and this movie kind of brought a lot of people, as well as me, into the whole sort of anime kind of Ghibli kind of franchise. And I'm happy that I did that, because I have a whole kind of bag with Studio Ghibli movies that I can't wait to just see them and make reviews for you guys with those. But anyway, thanks for watching and listening, and take care.